In this episode of The Russell Brown Show, I'm going to be discussing the fine art and basics of bokeh. It's not a fine wine, it's a new feature here inside of Photoshop CS6. And in this project, we're going to start with an image that looks like this, and we're going to add this blooming or bouquet of light around the edge with a feature called the blur gallery. Now, let's get started with this project with another image, but I'm going to return to this image in just a minute because I want to finish this up and show you yet some other super user tips and techniques when working with bokeh. But since this is all about the basics, let's go to this galactic image that has a series of fine little pinpoints of light that will really bokeh and allow us to run some tests on this whole process. Let's get going. With this image, I'm going to go to my filter menu and down here to blur, and then over here to tilt shift. In this particular project, tilt shift is going to display this technique the best. Now, as you can see here, I can go in and control the amount of blur region by clicking here on my screen. I can control the fall off here. And of course, let me just take a moment to hold down my letter M key on my keyboard. The letter M will then display the mask. I'm holding it down, and then I can continue to move this area here, this dashed line, which represents the fall off of this masked area. And of course, clicking here to control this region in which I'm applying the blur. And here in the center, of course, I can then move this slider to adjust the amount of blur within my image here. Just so you know, you can adjust the amount of blur over here to the right like this as well. Now that you've seen some of the basics to adjusting this blurred region, let's go right over here to bokeh. Here under light bokeh, I'm going to slide this slider over to the right, and you'll quickly notice that this blooming of these spots of light in this galaxy are starting to bokeh within my image. And of course, the amount of blur determines the size of this bokeh, as you see here, from very small to very large. I'm going to create some really large bokeh just like this. Then down here under bokeh color, I can bring in some randomizing colors into this, which really adds a nice touch to this. Then finally, let's move down here and talk about the light range. Light range is the range of tones that will be affected by this blooming process. So for example, if I'd like to reduce the amount of bloom or the range of tones which are being affected, I click, in this case, on my white slider, move it toward my black slider, and I'm now reducing the tones to be only those tones between the black and the white slider. In other words, reducing the amount of bokeh. I can move this range to be darker tones or the brightest highlights, merely by sliding these two sliders around as you see here. In this project, I want a fairly broad region, so I'm going to expand this out so I can see all of these points of light that are bokehing within my image. Because now I want to demonstrate symmetric distortion right here. Now, in most cases, when working with a real lens, the distortion is not symmetrical. Check this out. If I adjust the distortion here to the right, it's distorting the lower bokeh here, but the upper bokeh is remaining as a circular bokeh. According to the experts, a real lens will bokeh in this fashion. But if you want to distort reality, then click here on the symmetric distortion. Now, the top and the bottom will both be distorted in the same way. As I move my distortion, you can see I get some really interesting effects. So keep that in mind when designing your particular effects within your image. Okay, I think I've covered it all. The bokeh itself, the range, the blur. So let's apply this to a real-world image. Let's cancel from this and go back over here to my demo image. I'm going to start with my original image right here. Targeting this image, I'm going to go up here to my filter menu, and in this particular case, I'm going to select an iris blur. This is a single point, an iris point here, where I can adjust the edges by clicking here on the control points and adjust the size of the blur region. I want to focus the blur right down here to this area. Now I also want to control the fall off, but let's first turn on a little bit of bokeh so we can see this. Sliding my bokeh over here to the right, I'm starting to get some little spots blooming here around the city. I'm going to increase my blur radius here. That looks great. I'm going to bring up my color within my bokeh down here with my bokeh colors slider to add in some randomizing colors within the image. Looks fantastic. I might finish off by adjusting my light range. Let's see if I can bring this back a bit. There. That's reduced it down to just a few refined points within my image, and I really like that. One other super user tip and technique I want to show you is the ability to control the fall off. As you recall, when you select the letter M on your keyboard, you can see the mask. You can control the fall off with these 4 points around the center of this iris blur. In this case, I'm clicking on just one of the points and all 4 of them are moving. However, if I hold down the Option or Alt key and click on one of these points, I can adjust it separately from all the others. In this case, I wanted a little bit less of a bokeh here in the water, so I'm adjusting this lower point just like this. And it then isolates that point away from the others. It's a really great super user tip and technique. This is starting to look great. I like it the way it is. Up here in the options bar, however, I'm going to check a few more boxes. I'm going to check here for high quality, and I'm going to check here for save mask to channels. I'm going to check that box. I'm going to click OK. It's now going to process this image, and because I selected that box to create a mask, it's going to automatically make a mask of the area that we have adjusted with this blur. And we can see this channel here under the Channels tabbed panel, right down here at the base. If I select on it, you can see here that the mask has been saved within our file. Let's actually recover this mask and use it, in this case, to add some noise back into our image. I'm going to hold down my Command key on the Macintosh or my Control key on the PC and click on the mask to recover this as a selection. Then I'm going to go back up and select my RGB image, go back to my Layers panel, and then make sure that I have my image targeted. In this particular project, I want to add some noise back into the image. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this area right here. Because in the process of blurring this image, I've removed the natural noise within the image, and I want to recover that. And this mask that I saved in this process is going to assist us to make this possible. With the mask selected, I'm now going to go up to my filter menu, down to noise, and over here to add noise. What I can do now is go in and dial in an exact amount of noise for my particular project that gives it a more natural look again, giving me the noise that was in the actual night photograph. I'm going to reduce this a bit. Let's try 4. That looks better. So I'm bringing back in a little bit of noise to the area that I've blurred, a much more natural effect so that the noise across the image is uniform. Let's double click on my hand tool. Let's deselect from that selection, and we finished our project. There you have it, a great new feature that lets you add a targeted blur and combine that with this great new bokeh feature here inside of Adobe Photoshop CS6. Give it a try.